Hi guys, how are you today? Welcome back to my channel Adventures in America. Today we're going to talk about the countries that require a COVID test before you can enter. Please take note that only essential travel of outbound Filipinos are allowed at this time. Non-essential travel for leisure and tourism purposes will not be permitted. The following essential travel passengers are allowed to travel abroad through any of the airports or seaports in the country. Number 1, overseas Filipino workers. Number 2, students enrolled abroad and participants accepted in exchange visitor programs. Number 3, permanent residents of foreign jurisdiction. And number 4, foreign nationals. Essential travel of Filipinos abroad for business and work, medical emergency, and other humanitarian reasons which cannot be postponed may also be allowed, subject to presentation of sufficient supporting documents and medical requirements as required by the destination country, including the execution of declaration acknowledging the risks involved in traveling, including risk of delay in their return trip. Provided that this provision shall not be interpreted to allow outbound travel by Filipinos to countries where travel restrictions are in place. Passengers must also accomplish and sign the Passenger Health Locator form indicating that they are fit to travel, to be submitted upon check-in along with the presentation of the required supporting and medical documents as required by the destination country. Let's get started. Here are the list of countries requiring a COVID-19 test upon arrival. In the USA, it's only Hawaii. Nucleic acid amplification test from CLIA certified laboratory taken within 72 hours of boarding their flight and to show proof of a negative test result upon arrival, and this will be effective on October 1st, 2020. Let's go to the Middle East. First, Kuwait. Negative PCR test result issued within the previous 96 hours prior to departure. If requested, 10% of passenger on each flight will be selected for a random COVID-19 PCR test upon arrival. Qatar. Passengers from low-risk countries required to take PCR test upon arrival to airport. Other countries including the Philippines required to take a PCR test on the 6th day of hotel quarantine in Qatar. United Arab Emirates, negative COVID-19 certificate before arriving into the 2 airports in Dubai. Arriving passengers from 29 countries including Philippines shall undergo another COVID-19 PCR test upon arrival. Let's go over Asia. Cambodia. Medical certificate issued by health authorities recognized and certified by the government of his/her home country indicating that he/she is COVID-19 negative for 72 hours to the departure. Upon arrival, Cambodians and non-Cambodian nationals alike will be escorted to a designated COVID-19 center for testing where they will be accommodated, and they must wait up to 24 hours for the results before being allowed to enter the kingdom. Next, China. Chinese and foreign travelers who are to fly from the Philippines to China are required to take nucleic acid tests for COVID-19 within 3 days before boarding, and only those who test negative will be allowed to board the plane. Hong Kong. Original copy of negative nucleic acid test result certificate indicating passenger name, passport number, or ID issued within 72 hours before departure. Note, the laboratory test result must state negative for SARS-CoV-2 or not detected SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus. Beginning August 10, no need to have ID or travel document number of the relevant traveler on the test report. The test report can be a copy, either paper or electronic, doesn't need to be original. Indonesia, test result with validity of minimum 7 days prior to departure date, which is not mandatory. Without certificate, passenger will be subject to PCR test upon arrival and quarantine at personal expense. For domestic travel, PCR test is required with validity of 7 days prior to departure on a domestic flight. Indonesia, Denpasar, test result with validity of minimum 7 days prior to departure date, which is not mandatory. Without certificate, passenger will be subject to PCR test upon arrival and quarantine at personal expense. International passenger unable to show PCR test result from country of departure will be directed to Udayana University Hospital for PCR test and quarantined in a designated hotel. All costs will be shouldered by traveler. Macau, test result issued by local medical institution within 7 days before boarding flight. Malaysia, COVID-19 testing prior to departure to Malaysia is no longer required. All passengers are required to undergo COVID-19 swab test upon arrival. Upon arrival at the Malaysia International Point of Entry. Japan, effective September 1st, 2020. Non-Japanese nationals, including Filipinos, with 1 new Japan visa sticker on passport and 2 holding re-entry permit. Pre-entry test negative certificate conducted within 72 hours before departure. Seafarers, pre-entry test negative certificate conducted within 72 hours before departure. All arriving passengers from Philippines are required to take a PCR test to be conducted by Japan local quarantine. Papua New Guinea, test result issued at most 7 days before departure. Singapore, arriving passengers shall undergo COVID-19 test before the end of their stay home notice or SHN. For sea crew passengers must have a negative COVID-19 test result 48 hours prior to flight and obtain a fit to travel medical certificate 24 hours prior to flight departure. South Korea, test result issued by designated hospital within 48 hours before flight departure time. Certificate must have Korean or English translation. The negative COVID-19 PCR test result will only be accepted if it was issued by one of the hospitals designated by the embassy. Taiwan, test result certificate in English issued at most 3 working days before departure. All arriving passengers coming from the Philippines must be mandatory swabbed for COVID-19 test on arrival. And there are also exceptions. Let's go to Thailand. PCR test result issued no more than 72 hours before departure. Vietnam, experts must be tested for SARS-CoV-2 by real-time PCR for 3 to 7 days before entering Vietnam. So there you have it. Please take note that non-essential outbound travel is still prohibited unless you have a medical emergency or for humanitarian reasons you needed to travel abroad. Again, thank you guys for watching, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. And if you have any questions or comments, send them down below in the comments section and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Again, stay safe. Thank you and have a great day.